Welcome back, everybody. This session will be in English. However, if you have questions to the author, you can post them in the comments in English as well as in German, and we will translate them. Our next guest chased us together with the Iron Druid around the whole globe and some other planes, and nearly through every religion that ever existed on Earth. This is certainly one of my highlights of this book fair. So a great welcome to Kevin Hearne.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? I hope you're having a good day so far.
We did. And now my highlight, I was looking forward to this. So thanks a lot for being here with us. And as we don't have that much time, let's just start directly. Sure. Just related to the Iron Druid, but of course, first of all, we want to talk about Ink and Siegel, your new book, which is actually set in the Iron Druid universe. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about this one. What's happening? What is the angle of this book?
Oh, sure. Well, the hero is Al McVarish, and he's a 63-year-old man who would love to retire from his job as a sigil agent. And what he does is he sort of oversees contracts between the various Fey planes and so on and Earth, and making sure, certain beings have the actual right to be here, and if they don't, he's responsible for either kicking them out or talking to somebody who can do the job instead. And he's doing a lot of the work that used to be done by druids. But what happened was, of course, Atticus O'Sullivan, the Iron Druid, was busy. He was in hiding, and he wasn't really doing that part of his job at all, because that would lead the gods who were hunting him to him. So it was necessary to create sigil agents. So Al McVarish is one of 5 sigil agents that kind of does some of this smaller, minor work, but still quite dangerous work. And he would love to be able to retire, but his apprentices keep dying. And in the first book of Ink and Sigil, his 7th apprentice dies. And he's starting to notice a pattern here, maybe something's going on. So it leads him to wonder if these really are all accidents. And he discovers that not exactly. They're not really accidents. So there's a lot of Fey magic, a lot of the same magic system, basically, from the Iron Druid world. But also there's additional stuff. However, you don't have to have read any of the Iron Druid books to jump in with Ink and Sigil. You could just jump right in and have a great time. And then if you want to, you could go back and read the Iron Druid Chronicles at your leisure. And so it's a lot of fun. We've got this sigil agent. He has a hobgoblin named Buckfoy who joins him. And he has an accountant who's also a pit fighter, and some other surprises in there. So it's a good time.
And as you just said, it's set in Scotland. It's in Glasgow mostly. So the way you describe it, you must have been there, right?
Yes, I went there for a couple of weeks, and I loved it. It's so wonderful. Such an interesting city because of there's all these centuries of different architecture kind of crammed in together. So depending on where you're walking around, you can see some very modern stuff or some very old Gothic kind of things going on. The necropolis is remarkable. This huge, 14-acre, well, it might be larger than that, 40-acre, I think. I can't remember, but it's a huge cemetery. And they have some very elaborate mausoleums and tombs there, gravestones of all kinds. And it's because of the Victorian fascination with death that they have such elaborate graveyard there. So it's quite a mood that gets set there. There's an old Gothic cathedral there too that's fantastic. So that's one part of the feel of the city. And then there's this very modern part as well. It's now sort of becoming a tech hub for the UK. It's the 3rd largest city in the UK, outside of like London, I think, and Birmingham. So It's a wonderful city, and I really loved going there and exploring. Of course, there's a great whiskey scene, and gin is a huge export as well of Scotland now. So I had a wonderful time exploring it.
Yes, with the whiskey and gin scene, there is a nice pub in the book, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, the one that gets mentioned in the book, I really like when I write my books to make sure that that the locations are real, so that you could actually recognize them if you were in that city. You could visit the places that I'm talking about. And Gin 71 is a real gin bar in Glasgow with a couple of different locations with an extraordinary menu where they have all these gins listed by flavor profile, and they suggest a tonic to go with it and then a garnish to go with it. And it's a good time.
I can imagine. And I think it's right to say that you fell in love with the Scottish accent, or rather the Ouija accent.
Yeah. There's a lot of variation in the accents in Scotland, as of course there are many accents in Germany and many accents in the United States. But the Scottish accent, specifically the one in Glasgow, they call it the Ouija accent. It has some differences, even grammatically, from the rest of Scots English. There are linguistic papers about the dinna gap, instead of do not. A lot of Scotland will say dinny, dinny do that, and so but people in Glasgow don't. They say don't instead of dinny, and so it's called the Glasgow dinny gap. And so Glasgow is it's sort of there's this really weird word called a shibboleth, and it basically means that if it's a word by which everybody knows, it's sort of like a secret word. If you're part of the in group, if you know that word. So in Glasgow, if you use dinny, they know you're not from Glasgow, because the people in Glasgow will use don't. Yeah. So I had a great time researching some of that stuff, and I have a friend who's from Glasgow who really helped me out. His name is Stu West, and he helped me out with getting the Scots language correct.
And the questions tumble in here. I don't believe it. So this one is interesting. Have you traveled to all the places that appear in your books?
Most of them. If any of you are familiar with the Iron Druid Chronicles, in book 8, Staked, Atticus is kind of bopping around Europe a little bit, and he goes to Berlin at one point. And the hotel and everything that happens in Berlin, that was my hotel. That's where I stayed. So everything again is real. And he was in Prague, and he was in Rome, and those places I also went to research them and make sure I was getting it accurate. So in book 6, I believe there's a stretch where he's running across Germany. I wasn't able to get to Germany for that particular one, but I had some people in Germany help me out with what the landscape looked like there, and coached me through some of that. So,
and obviously, Owen was once in Bavaria.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, I did a lot of online research for that too. I would love to be able to go and visit the area personally, but I haven't been able to get there for a little while now.
So, as we said, we are in the Iron Druid universe. Will Atticus appear in the books, in the new books?
Yeah, in the first book, Tinte and Siegel, he is just there's just one chapter where he is kind of a memory. Al McVarish is sharing a memory of when he first met Atticus. But then in the second book, can I show it to you?
Yeah.
I got the second book.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
it's called Paper and Blood, or in German it would be Papier und Blut, and it will be out in German. I'm not sure when. I actually don't know when this will be translated, but it's coming out in English on August 10th. So it'll be out soon. And what was I saying? Oh, Atticus and Oberon are very much a part of Paper and Blood. They will have a major part of the plot because Al goes to meet them down in Australia. at the end of the Iron Druid Chronicles, Atticus was in Tasmania, and so they're going to all meet up in Sydney and go from there to have a little adventure in the Australian bush. So, yeah.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
So let me see. Kimberly is asking, she says, I'm addicted to all your books, but especially love the Tales of Pell.
Oh.
Do you foresee any other books in this series?
Okay, so right now there are 3 of those, which I co-authored with Delilah S. Dawson, and we had a blast doing that. That was so much fun. So thank you for reading those. Really appreciate it. We would love to do more. Right now, we are both super busy doing other books, but if the demand is there, then heck yeah, we would love to do some more. Just keep spreading the word about it so people hear about it, and if enough people are asking for more, then I'm sure we'll at some point supply the demand.
I'm sure there are going to be some mail sent tonight.
Thank you.
Stefan seems to be interested. Now I see you again. Stefan seems to be interested in the Egyptian gods. He loves them, and he wants to know if you will introduce more of them into your books.
At the moment, I'm not. I don't think I'm going to go continue to go there too much. I would need to probably get to Egypt myself. I'm very fascinated by the recent archaeological discoveries there, where they have unearthed some brand new evidence and huge kinds of discoveries that rival the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb. And I've been following that in the press, but I haven't really had a reason yet to go back into the Egyptian stuff. There's, I think, a couple of things, though, but Grimoire of the Lamb is the big one, and that appeared as a novella that was, set around the Egyptian deities.
So what else do we have? Where am I? There are too many questions. I can't ask them all. Is Tullamore Dew also your favorite Irish whiskey?
It's not. It is for like an everyday one. Like if I just want, I'm going to mix it in with something. Tullamore Dew is fantastic. If I'm going to like really sort of celebrate and savor it, then I love an Irish whiskey called Yellow Spot. It's been aged in oak and then Malaga casks, and so it takes on extra flavors and a little more complex than Tullamore Dew is. So that's my favorite right at the moment. My favorite will change whenever I find something else. I just like to try things and see what tastes good at the time. And right now, Yellow Spot is hitting the spot for me.
Okay, we will remember that. Check on that. Do you have in all the, and I hope I pronounced that right, pantheons, do you have one favorite god?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I have favorites other than I really enjoy the Irish pantheon for how they are similar, but also how they are different from the Greco-Roman deities. Flittish has always been fascinating to me as a deity because she is like Artemis and Diana without the virgin aspect to her. She kind of goes the other way, and so I like the fact that she is sexually liberated and that is celebrated in the Irish pagan tradition and not sort of repressed or in the pagan times that they were much more accepting of the equality of the sexes, and the patriarchy didn't really take hold until St. Patrick came along. So yeah, that's why I kind of enjoy the Irish pagan tradition. They have their issues too, of course, but you know, in general, that's what I've been fascinated with.
So now comes a technical question. I think it's more. Why do the audiobooks of the Iron Druid flick-flack between two readers?
Oh, that part of that is territory rights, and for the main novels, if they're sold in the UK or basically Europe, then they hire their own reader. But for the US and Canada, we have a different reader. And then for things that I self-publish and some of my smaller stuff, I use the US reader. So that is why in some places, like in Europe, you are getting one reader for the major novels, and then for all of the smaller works, you will be getting the reader that we have in the United States, named Luke Daniels, because I only have the one reader to do those. So that's why you have two. Where you are, it is in the United States and Canada, it's just Luke Daniels. It's just the one reader the whole time. So.
Okay. I'm going to chase you away a little bit from Al and the Iron Druid into the epic fantasy, and people would like to know a little bit more about the Seven Canics. Okay.
I'm working on it right now, actually. I'm working on the third book, which is called A Curse of Krakens. And in the first two, I believe, are available in Germany now. In German. I'm not positive about the second book. I don't know if it's come out yet or not, but the first one I know is available in German. Yeah. And so I've been having a great time with it. It's very different from, you know, the Iron Druid stuff and the urban fantasy. The epic fantasy is about a continent that is invaded at the same time, almost simultaneously, on opposite shores from two different races of giants. And they have different agendas, but everybody who's on that continent, one way or another, is affected by this invasion, and they have to figure out how to deal with it. So what I wanted to do was write an epic fantasy that sort of simulated in prose what people used to experience in the original epic fantasy, the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid, where a bard told a story every night in pieces, and gradually you had an epic. So that experience I always thought was fascinating, that was the entertainment back then. Let's sit by the fire, it's nighttime, let's hear a story. And I can't really do that in a book, but maybe I'll try something. So I have a bard tell the story from different perspectives. And so that way you actually get a sense of everybody's involvement, how huge the scope of this continental war is, because you are getting perspectives not just of military leaders or kings or queens or something. You are actually getting regular people telling the story. They're caught up in what happens, and what happens to them matters just as much as some important person. So that's how I approached it. And so I have, I think, 11 narrators in the first book, and then I have 12 in the second, and I will have 12 in the third one. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we get quite close to each and every one of them, right? Because we see their perspective directly.
Yes, it's first person for every single one of them. And that's the other thing that kind of makes it a challenge for me to write, but also great fun for me to write. Because, I mean, to my knowledge, I'm not sure that it gets done very often, where you have so many first person perspectives in an epic fantasy. So, yeah, I'm having a great time with the structure of it. It's just really a nerdy thing from that comes from my years of teaching English in America. So I got into the epics because of that, and I wanted to try to see what I could do in a modern format.
And it's 3 books, right? Or are you planning on more? It's 3 for
just
the
these
time.
3.
Just these 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So here is a wonderful suggestion for your website. I like your website because all the goodies and everything, I love that. And here's a nice suggestion. Is there a quiz to find out your animal forms if you were to become a druid yourself?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't thought about how to do that, how to make a choice for the different
Mm.
animal things. The way it's presented in the books is that you don't have a choice as the
Yeah.
druid. Gaia is going to choose those forms for you. You will find out when you are bound to the earth what your animal forms will be, because she is choosing what she needs or what to protect her.
Yeah.
So I haven't really thought about doing it as a choice thing, but I agree it would be a lot of fun. And of course, if I've had people, they want to get tattoos, and they're like, "Can I choose my own?" And I'm like, "Of course, it's your body. You do what you want. Have fun. Go wild. Have a great time." And on my website there are sample tattoos.
Yeah.
That I had designed of Atticus's and Granuail's tattoos. And if you wish to do a different one, you're perfectly encouraged to take those designs to your tattoo artist and design something that will work for you.
Do you get pictures if they get tattooed? Do they send you pictures?
Yeah, people will send them to me, and it's amazing stuff. I love it. It's great.
So here's another question. How much research do you do for your books? If we think about gods, places, languages, or in this case now ink and sigil, the inks. I mean, what you explain about them, it's amazing.
Yeah, I do quite a bit, but hopefully not so much that I just disappear for a month, while I'm researching something, because you can't possibly put it all in there. I found out in the course of researching the ink thing for ink and sigil that there are just tens of thousands of ink recipes out there. So many different ways to make a mark on a paper. And it used to be actually very dangerous, the old methods of making ink, because of the oils that they were burning. They were trying to purify them and so on. And so they were cooking these oils. Well, they were incredibly flammable and could sometimes explode and, hurt people or set the city on fire. So there were, some medieval cities that made it illegal to make ink inside the city walls. You have to do that outside. And to this day, you should do those things outside and on a calm day. You don't want wind going by when you're burning stuff, So it's a fascinating thing to get into that research. And I started to look into trying to make some inks here at home, but then quickly realized I am not a chemist and I would probably mess it up. But I'm very grateful to the people who have been working on making inks all this time, because I love using them for my fountain pens and so on. When it comes to researching various mythologies, some of them are actually still active religions. And so if we are dealing with a case where that is where there are active worshipers, then I want to talk to somebody who is of that faith to make sure I'm not doing anything incorrect there. And then in general, I do try to avoid some just altogether, because I don't have access to somebody that I could talk to easily. So I don't want to get it wrong. So that's the advantage of having a first person perspective. I don't have to tell all of the stories out there. I just the ones that Atticus runs into, So.
So another question. Oh, now we go back to your beginning. How did you start writing? And do you have any suggestions for people who want to start writing?
Well, I started writing when I was 19. I kind of got the desire to write a novel in college. And then I didn't get published until I was 39. So that was 20 years before I got published, which on the one hand might be discouraging, but on the other hand can be very encouraging. It's never too late to get started. And I think sometimes that you have to live a little bit and have a good chunk of life under your belt before you can really write about sort of the whole range of human experience. But that's not to say there aren't many incredibly successful and brilliant young people writing novels. I'm just saying that it's okay if you're older and just starting. It's fine. In many cases works out great. I think that there's what is it? Where the Crawdads Sing by that's a huge New York Times bestseller. It's and the lady who wrote it is in her 70s.
Libadugo, you mean?
I'm not sure what the name is in German. But it's sold so many copies, and it's the first novel of a woman who's a senior citizen. And so it's wonderful. You could start at any time and become successful. I just suggest that you finish your work. That 20 years where I did not get published, I was mostly not finishing a book. When I finally did finish a book, it was terrible. And then I wrote a second one. It was also terrible. And then the third one was hounded. So a lot of times people will not publish the first book they write. It's sort of like their training wheels on a bicycle. It's you use it to learn, and then you move on and write the next story. And so that's a fairly common thing. A lot of published authors will tell you that it was either their second to fourth book that they wrote that actually got published, and their first one was just full of errors and mistakes, but they had to do it to learn how the craft is done. So
I hear from many that they take the first book but completely rewrite it, and then it's fine.
Yeah, that happens a lot too.
So here's a question you may or may not answer. So it's open if you want to answer or not. May I ask you what your religion is?
Oh, I'm going to pass. Yeah.
You pass, and that's fine. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me see. When the virus crap is over, will you ever travel to Germany?
I hope so. I would love to. I've been there, the one time for the trip to Berlin when I was researching Staked. But I haven't been able to get back. I would love to, because I did enjoy my time there very much, and I would love to see more of the country. And I am planning to travel again once I'm allowed. At the moment, of course, yeah. I'm still waiting to get my second shot, and that will happen in August for me. And then hopefully after that, things will start to open up internationally, and I'll be able to travel again.
And come over for some readings, because there are a lot of people who say they really need some books signed.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, that would be a blast, honestly. I remember flying into that trip. We flew into Munich and then went from there actually to Warsaw. And then I took the train from Warsaw to Berlin, and Berlin then down to Rome. I was all over the place, but I loved my time in Germany, and I would love to get back there and see some people. I did do one signing while I was there in Berlin, but I wished I could have stayed longer and seen more people. So definitely, I would love to get back there.
Let us talk a little bit about ink and Siegel. It's pronounced like that. Tinte und Siegel. I do it very simply. Mr. Buckfoy, I'm interested in him. How do you come to find these names always? That is one of the fun things, isn't it?
It is a lot of fun. The Hobgoblin naming conventions get explored a little bit more in the second book, and as well as troll naming conventions. And I have so much fun with that stuff. But yeah, Buckfoy, his real name, it gets mentioned only once. His actual name, his first name, is Gag Badhump. And so he doesn't like that for very good reasons. And so he wants to change it. And then what he changes it to is sort of, you know, this semi-obscene joke. And so, but he prefers it, you know, much more to, you know, gag bad hump. So I love his mischief. I love that he gets developed a lot more in the second book too. Like, what motivates him? Why does he behave the way he does? What is the purpose of what, you know, why are hobgoblins around? What do they do? What purpose do they, or role do they serve, you know? And he gets into that a lot more in the second book, but you get a wonderful, delightful little taste of him in the first one. So I'm glad you like him, because you're going to get a lot more in the second one.
Yay. There's another topic in Ink and Sigil, I mean, as hilarious and funny and great as the book may be, but that has a serious background, which is trafficking. It's fey trafficking, but you're also relating to human trafficking. Is this something that you have, that's wrong to say, a personal interest in, but that you want to convey a general truth about it?
Yeah, it's one of the nice things about fantasy and science fiction is that it sometimes allows us to get a little bit of distance from really painful and difficult subjects in our real world. So if we're able to talk about the trafficking of fae, these imaginary creatures, then maybe we can use that as a doorway into confronting human trafficking and how awful that is, and how very, very prevalent it is. There are more people in the world today enslaved than ever before. It's not something that is, it's not necessarily called slavery sometimes, but the fact of the matter is they are not free to go home, and they are at the mercy of somebody else, and they are forced to work for their traffickers. And that is happening on a massive scale all around the globe. It's not limited to one country. So I wanted to address that a little bit in the book, and kind of open people's eyes to it a little bit. I'm not sure if the German version has my acknowledgments at the end, but it does name a couple of books that I used for research on the subject. You know, I encourage people to, you know, educate themselves a little bit more. Like I personally, once you find out where they're trafficking people and for what industries they're using people to their labor, I try to be sure I am buying products that would not use trafficked labor in the making of that product. So things like that I'm very conscious about, and try to live my life in that way. It's not too hard to do that. You know, you can make choices to buy certain products instead of others that are sourced ethically. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping folks might look into a little bit.
So in a way, it's fantasy does what fairy tales did in the past. They are telling a story, and with that conveying a truth that you can't simply spell out. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It is fiction in general helps us grapple with issues that are tough to talk about straightforwardly.
Yeah. Here comes another general question. When writing, are you a plotter, or do you rather just write more spontaneously?
I do both. I'm a hybrid. I think of it as a spectrum. That question comes up a lot, and it's often presented as a binary. But I think there's a spectrum on there, much like gender. You have all of these things in between. So I typically write an outline, a basic outline of the story, but then the contents of that outline might change. I might rearrange chapters, and I might delete them. I might add additional ones. You know, I'm able to improvise as I go. the main point of having an outline for me is to make sure that I'm productive every day. Because if I am stuck on chapter 3, then, and the words just aren't coming, I know that chapter 5 on my outline looks like a lot of fun, so I can skip and write chapter 5 that day and come back to chapter 3 when my subconscious has worked on it and I'm ready to go. So that way I'm getting a little bit closer to the end of the book every day, and I'm not just stuck going, oh my God, and losing all this time,
Yeah.
So that's why I do it that particular way. It means that sometimes I write out of order, which makes, no sense to some people, and that's fine. But I do start at the beginning, but I don't always continue in a straight line. I sometimes jump around as I go. So.
And when comes the inspiration for a story? Where do you get that from?
Oh gosh, a lot. Well, the Iron Druid Chronicles started out because I like dogs, and I wanted to have a talking dog. And since I wanted a talking dog, I had to ask myself, well, what kind of magical person would be speaking to a dog? And I didn't want a witch or a wizard, because when they have a familiar, it's sort of almost like a master-servant relationship, which I don't dig. I wanted it to be a friend. So the druid fit the bill for me. I thought a druid would have a much more friendly relationship with a dog or any animal. And then that led me into research about druids. And so, I kind of built from the characters. And that's basically how I approach things. When you have a character, you want to have your plot grow naturally from that character, who they are and what kind of trouble they would get into, and then how they would react to it. So all of your plot derives from who your characters are.
So this leads me back quickly to Inke and Siegel, because your protagonist, he's not the typical hero. Al is let's say an elderly man who wants to retire. How did that come? How did you say, I want to write about an older person now? I have this forever living young druid, now an older person?
A little bit. I'm dealing a lot in my series with how do we age? How do we deal with grief? How do we say goodbye to people? Or, what if you have to say goodbye to everybody because you live forever? I mean, how does that affect you over time? So, but Al came about, I wanted to explore his character because I gave him a very small walk-on role in a short story. He appears in a short story called Cuddle Dungeon, and that is in the book called Besieged, which I'm not sure what the title is in German. Do you know which one that is? It's the book of short stories.
Yeah, I actually don't know, because I read it in English.
Okay, all right. But he shows up there in Cuddle Dungeon, and when I finished the series and I was thinking about what I wanted to do from that point, I came back to this character and how interesting he was. He was so strange and seemed maybe a tiny bit out of place. And I wanted to figure out, well, why was he there? And once I started thinking about, well, how does he fit into this universe? I realized he was quite interesting. And then it would be an opportunity to tell a story of an older person being the hero, which doesn't happen a lot. So I wanted to, kind of dive into that and do something that hasn't been done often. And I'm having a great time with it. It's a lot of fun.
Kevin, we are nearly at the end.
Okay.
I don't know where the time went, to be honest. I have myself 15 other questions, but well, you promised to come to Germany, and you know that we are here in a bookstore where we usually have reading sessions. You're invited.
Oh, thank you.
But there's one last question, and maybe we will have a premiere here now. So when will the joke with the goat finally be told?
Okay, that's great. That's a great question. Thank you for reading. I appreciate it. Yeah, I have these running jokes going through the whole thing, and one of them is about this story that Atticus doesn't want repeated about the goat and the Roman skirt, and apparently it's hilarious. And I'm using it as it's one of the I don't know the answer. I don't know what it is. I just put it out there as a story that, you know, Atticus doesn't want us to know, so I don't know either. There you go. I'm sorry that'll you can make up your own. Write some fan fiction.
I'm just I have to look to the side because the technic guy he's just falling from his chair because of laughing.
Yeah, that was a good time. Thank you.
Okay. So Kevin, yeah, it was far too short. You're invited to Germany whenever you want to. Let us know, and we will organize some reading sessions for you. It was great, really great to have you here to get to know you. And I would say as soon as this, what did he say? This virus thing is over.
Yeah,
let's meet in person.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you so kindly for having me on. I really appreciate it. And, you know, everybody take care of yourselves over there. I really hope you all be well.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Bye.